Growing up, I always knew I was not the first choice. My name is Patricia, and for as long as I can remember, I watched my parents give all their attention and support to my older brother, Ryan. I was always in the background. It wasn't something small, it was obvious. I remember sitting alone at the kitchen table, doing my homework, while Mom and Dad took Ryan to his singing competitions or club meetings. He was 4 years older than me, and somehow that meant he deserved everything more. Anytime his teachers said he had talent, my parents made sure to invest in it. Even though we didn't have much money, they still paid for lessons and equipment. Ryan has such a beautiful voice. Mom would tell everyone, he's going to be special one day. Meanwhile, I learned not to ask for much. When I wanted to take art classes, Mom just gave me a small smile and said, "Maybe next semester, honey." Ryan's voice lessons are taking up the budget right now. It became even clearer when Ryan was in his last year of high school. I was 16, sitting at the dinner table quietly when my parents made a big announcement. "We've been saving up," Dad said proudly. "We're sending Ryan to Burnley College. It's one of the top schools in the state." Ryan's face lit up. "Really? That's amazing." "And that's not all," Mom added. "You can stay in our apartment near campus, no rent of course. We want you to focus on your studies." I stared at my plate, pushing my food around, trying not to show how I felt. But no one was looking at me anyway. They were all focused on Ryan, smiling and talking about his future. That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I did the math. If my parents were paying so much for Ryan's college and giving him a free apartment, there was no way they had anything left for me. The thought hit me hard. But instead of feeling bad, I decided to make a plan. The next day, I went to my grandparents' antique shop. I told my grandfather everything. He listened carefully, then said, "Well, Patricia, I could just give you the money for college." He paused, stroking his chin. "But I think it would be better if you earned it yourself. How would you like to work here after school?" And that's how it started. While Ryan packed for his big college journey, I started working at the antique shop every afternoon. I helped sort items, assist customers, and learned the business from my grandfather. My grandmother would bring me snacks and tell me stories about the vintage pieces we sold. My parents' reaction to my new job said a lot. When I told them I was saving for college, they didn't offer help or encouragement. Instead, they just seemed relieved that I had figured things out on my own. For years went by quickly. Every afternoon spent dusting furniture and organizing old jewelry paid off. I had saved enough for college. When I graduated high school, there was no big celebration, just a quiet dinner at home. But I didn't mind. I was proud of myself. I enrolled in a local state college and chose a business program that wouldn't cost too much. The tuition was affordable, and I even had some money left over. Living at home and taking the bus to campus wasn't exciting, but it made sense financially. One evening, I brought up an idea. "Mom, Dad, I've been thinking about getting a used car. It would make getting to class easier." Dad barely looked up from his phone. "Sorry, Patricia. We just don't have the money for that right now." Mom added, "The bus is fine. Lots of students use it." I bit my tongue. I remembered how they had helped Ryan get his license and even gave him money for his first car. But that was in the past. It didn't matter now. My first year of college passed quickly. Just as I was finishing my spring finals, our house was suddenly filled with excitement. Ryan was graduating from Burnley College. Mom and Dad planned a huge celebration, inviting what felt like half the town. The house was packed with relatives, friends, and neighbors, all there to celebrate Ryan. I was in the kitchen arranging snacks when he walked in, making a grand entrance with a pretty blonde woman by his side, Jennifer, his college girlfriend. They were smiling as they held hands and walked into the room. "Everyone," Ryan announced, grabbing everyone's attention. "Jennifer and I have some exciting news. We're engaged." The room exploded with cheers and congratulations. Mom burst into happy tears, and Dad clapped Ryan on the back so hard I thought he might fall over. "But wait, there's more," Jennifer added sweetly. "After the wedding, we're moving to Massachusetts. My parents own a successful business there, and they want us to take it over." Mom cried even harder. "My baby boy, a businessman. That's my son." Dad beamed with pride. I always knew you'd do great things. I stood quietly in the corner, watching everything. Nobody noticed that I had just finished my first year of college with perfect grades, or that I was working part-time while keeping up with my studies. But I was used to it. For the next year, my parents were completely focused on the wedding. Meanwhile, I stayed busy with school. By the time I was in my 4th year, they had taken out a big loan to pay for everything: the venue, the food, the flowers, the music. Nothing was too expensive for Ryan and Jennifer. The wedding was just what I expected: fancy, emotional, and all about Ryan. I stood there in my bridesmaid dress, which I had to buy with my own money, watching my parents glow with pride as they danced with the happy couple. I knew they would be paying off that wedding loan for years. After the wedding, Ryan and Jennifer left for Massachusetts, and I went back to my small bedroom at my parents' house. As I stare at my textbooks, an idea came to me. The apartment Ryan had lived in during college was now empty. It was close to campus and would give me some space of my own. That evening, while my parents were watching TV, I spoke up. Mom, Dad, since Ryan's apartment is empty now, would it be okay if I moved in? They looked at each other before Mom answered. Well, honey, you can move in, but you'll have to pay rent. The words hit me like a slap. Rent? But Ryan lived there for free. Dad shifted uncomfortably in his chair. That was different. We have the wedding loan to pay off now. We need the extra money. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I'm your daughter too, I said, my voice shaking a little. I've never asked you for anything. I worked for my own college money. I take the bus everywhere. Mom raised her hand to stop me. She and Dad shared one of those silent looks, the kind they used when deciding whether to spend money on Ryan's activities. Fine, Mom finally said. We'll charge you half the normal rent. I wanted to argue, but I knew this was the best deal I would get. Okay, I'll take it. That weekend, I moved into the apartment. Ryan's presence was still everywhere: small holes in the walls from his posters, water rings on the coffee table from his late-night study sessions. I took extra shifts at the cafe to cover rent, often working until closing. Between classes, studying, and work, I barely had time to sleep. My final year of college passed in a blur of textbooks, cafe aprons, and midnight study sessions. Before I knew it, graduation day arrived. While my classmates' families planned big celebrations, my parents kept it simple, just a quiet dinner at home. They only invited my grandparents. No big party, no extra guests, no fancy catering like Ryan's graduation. We sat around the dining table, eating the lasagna I had made myself. Grandma reached over and squeezed my hand. Patricia, dear, we're so proud of you, she said warmly. Graduating with top honors while working part-time, that's an incredible achievement. Before I could reply, Mom's phone buzzed. Her face lit up as she read the message. Oh, speaking of achievements, she said, cutting in. Ryan just texted. The business is doing great. They're expanding to 2 new locations. I sat there, watching as my graduation dinner turned into a celebration of Ryan's success in Massachusetts. My grandparents exchanged knowing looks, and Grandpa patted my shoulder in quiet support. But my hard work in college paid off sooner than I expected. Just 3 weeks after graduation, I got a job at Scott & Larry, one of the most respected firms in the city. The salary was even better than I had hoped, and I was excited to start my career. That excitement lasted exactly 4 days, until my parents found out about my salary. Mom showed up at my apartment unannounced. Patricia, she said, sitting down like it was just another visit. Now that you're making good money, you should start paying full rent. I stared at her, unsure if I had heard correctly. But we agreed on half. That was when you were a student, she replied like it was obvious. You can afford it now. I wanted to remind her that Ryan had lived here for free even after he got a job. But I had learned that comparing myself to him was useless. The apartment was in the perfect location, just a 15-minute walk from my office, so I reluctantly agreed. Life settled into a routine. I focused on my job, determined to prove myself at the company. Every month, like clockwork, Mom would call. Patricia, dear, just reminding you about the rent. It's due on Sunday. We're counting on that money. For years passed this way. I worked hard and eventually got a big promotion and a raise. But I didn't tell anyone. I had learned my lesson. Any sign of financial success would only bring more demands from my parents. Through occasional updates, I heard that Ryan and Jennifer had a baby boy. I had seen pictures on social media, but I hadn't visited. Our conversations had become nothing more than short birthday messages and holiday greetings, and I was fine with that. Then came the phone call that changed everything. "Patricia," Mom's voice was tense. "We need to talk about your brother. There's been some trouble." I closed my eyes, already knowing where this was going. "The business, it went bankrupt," she continued. "He had a huge fight with Jennifer's parents. They're furious about how he managed things, and they're not speaking to him anymore." I took a deep breath. "Oh," I said carefully. "I assume he'll be staying with you and Dad?" Mom hesitated. "Actually, that apartment you're in is quite big. He'll be staying there." The phone almost slipped from my hand.
"What?"
"Mom, this is my home. I've been living here for years." "Don't be dramatic, Patricia. Your brother needs help. He doesn't have any money right now, so he'll stay there for free. You can keep paying the rent." "That's ridiculous," I protested. "If he's moving in, maybe I should just find my own place."
"Don't you dare," Mom snapped.
"We need your rent money now more than ever. Ryan's going through a rough time. You wouldn't want to make things harder for him, would you?" I shook my head in disbelief and hung up without another word. Moving day was worse than I had imagined. Ryan, Jennifer, and their crying baby, Eric, arrived with piles of luggage and baby gear. Mom showed up to supervise, which really meant making my life as difficult as possible. "Patricia, clear out your room," Mom ordered, hands on her hips. "Ryan and Jennifer need it for Eric's nursery." I stood frozen in the doorway of my bedroom, the only space I'd called my own for the past 5 years.
"What?"
"Where am I supposed to sleep?" "The living room has a perfectly good couch," she said, already moving my things. "You can't be serious. I pay rent here, full rent, and you're making me sleep on the couch." Mom's expression hardened. "Don't be selfish, Patricia. Your brother has a baby. Babies need proper rooms." I watched helplessly as my bedroom was turned into a nursery, complete with a crib, a changing table, and all the other baby stuff. My belongings were dumped in a corner of the living room, which was now my bedroom. The next few weeks were a complete nightmare. Ryan spent his days moping around the apartment, either complaining about his in-laws or talking about his glory days as a successful businessman. Jennifer was either crying or arguing with Ryan about whose turn it was to change Eric's diaper. The baby, sensing the tension, cried nonstop. Every day, I came home from work exhausted, only to find dirty dishes piled in the sink, toys scattered everywhere, and laundry overflowing. At first, I tried to ignore it, but soon, the dishes attracted ants, and the mess made it impossible to relax in my so-called bedroom. So I cleaned. I cooked. I did laundry. But every time I made food, it mysteriously disappeared before I could even eat. One evening, after an especially frustrating day at work, I decided to offer Ryan a chance to get back on his feet. "Ryan," I said, trying to keep my voice calm, "my company has a few job openings. I could talk to HR for you. The benefits are great, and the starting pay is decent." Ryan barely looked up from his phone. His face twisted in disgust. "An entry-level job? Are you serious?" "I'm a businessman, Patricia. I don't do entry-level. I need an executive position, something that fits my experience." The words slipped out before I could stop them. "Your experience running a business into the ground?" Ryan's face darkened. "You don't know anything about what happened. That was my in-laws' fault. They set me up to fail." He stormed off to my old bedroom, while I stood there, wondering how much longer I could live like this. 4 months into this miserable living situation, I sat at the kitchen table, now covered in Eric's dried baby food and Jennifer's coffee rings, going through my bank statements. The numbers didn't lie. My expenses had nearly doubled since Ryan and his family moved in. That was the final push I needed. I picked up my phone and called my parents, determined to stay calm and reasonable. The conversation went just as badly as I expected. "Mom," Dad, we need to talk about the living situation, I began. Ryan and Jennifer aren't paying for anything. They're eating all my food, using the utilities I pay for, and… Patricia, Mom cut me off, her voice sharp. I can't believe how selfish you're being. Your brother lost everything. His in-laws betrayed him. He has a baby to take care of. Dad's voice came from the background. You should be grateful that you're in a position to help family. But that's just it, I said, trying to stay calm. I'm not just helping. I'm carrying everything. I pay all the bills. They don't even buy groceries. That's enough, Mom snapped. Your brother is going through a hard time. This won't last forever. You need to be more understanding. That night, I opened my laptop and started looking for apartments. I saved a few options that were close to my office. Just in case, I told myself. Just in case things got worse. Things got worse exactly 3 weeks later. I was sitting on my couch bed, trying to focus on work documents while Eric wailed in the background. Ryan and Jennifer were having their fourth argument of the day. Then the doorbell rang. Before anyone could answer, my parents walked in. Mom had that look, the same one she had whenever she was about to announce that Ryan had been signed up for another expensive program. Dad stood behind her, avoiding eye contact. Patricia, we need to talk about the rent, Mom said. I looked up from my laptop. I paid this month's rent, on time as always. Yes, but starting next month, we're doubling it. The room went silent. Even Eric stopped crying. I stared at my mother, sure I had misheard. Double? But I'm already paying full rent. Mom gestured around the apartment. Well, there are more people living here now. That means more wear and tear, more utilities being used. It's only fair that the rent reflects that. Fair. I let out a bitter laugh. How is it fair that I should pay double rent when I don't even have a bedroom? I sleep on the couch. If anyone should pay more, it should be Ryan. He's the one who… I'm not paying anything. Ryan jumped up from his chair. This is ridiculous. I lost everything, and now you expect me to pay rent. Of course not, sweetie, Mom said gently, before turning back to me with a cold look. Patricia, you have a good job. You can afford this. Your brother needs time to get back on his feet. I looked at their faces, Mom's firm expectation, Dad's awkward silence, Ryan's outrage, and Jennifer's smug expression. 4 months of frustration boiled inside me, but I swallowed it down. I nodded. Fine. I spoke softly. Double rent, starting next month. Mom's face lit up with satisfaction. She and Dad left soon after, clearly happy that everything had gone smoothly. They had no idea they had just given me the final push I needed to make my decision. Later that night, I lay on my uncomfortable couch bed, trying to read. That's when I heard Ryan and Jennifer talking in the kitchen. They were whispering, but their excitement made them careless. Can you believe it? Jennifer giggled. Your mom just told me they're giving us half of Patricia's rent money every month. Ryan's smug reply made my blood boil. Of course they are. They know we need help right now. Patricia makes plenty of money. She can support us for a while. This is perfect, Jennifer continued. We get to live here for free and even have extra spending money. Your sister doesn't need to know. I gripped my book so tightly my knuckles turned white. All this time, I thought my parents were just being unfair. But this wasn't just favoritism. This was a plan. They weren't just helping Ryan. They were using me to pay for his laziness. I grabbed my laptop and pulled up the apartment listings I had saved. One caught my eye, a modern 2-bedroom in a quiet building, even closer to my office than my current place. The rent was exactly what I had been paying before the increase. I called the number immediately, keeping my voice low. Hi, I'm interested in the apartment on Cedar Street. Yes, I can come see it right now. Perfect. I'll be there in 20 minutes. The apartment was everything I wanted, clean, quiet, and Ryan-free. I signed the lease on the spot and paid the deposit using my emergency savings. Back at the apartment, I waited until everyone was asleep before quietly packing my essentials into 2 large suitcases. I left the furniture behind. It wasn't worth the trouble. I could buy new things, ones that didn't remind me of this mess. The next morning, I rolled my suitcases to the door. Ryan was at the kitchen table, scrolling through job listings he had no intention of applying for. Going somewhere? He asked, barely looking up. Month-long business trip. I lied smoothly. Big project in our Columbus office. He just grunted, already losing interest. That evening, I moved into my new apartment. I ordered takeout and sat on the floor of my empty living room, enjoying the silence. No crying baby. No arguing couple. No guilt-tripping parents.
Just peace.
For the next month, I lived quietly in my new home. I bought a comfortable bed. A real couch, not one I had to sleep on. Kitchen supplies that only I would use. I cooked meals that stayed in my fridge until I ate them. I slept through the night without being woken up by Eric's crying. Then, right on time, my phone rang. It was my mother. "Patricia," she snapped, skipping any greeting. "Why haven't you sent the full rent payment? We agreed on double, remember?" I couldn't help but laugh. "Actually, Mom, I know all about your little deal with Ryan and Jennifer. Were you ever going to tell me that half my rent was going straight to them?" "That's none of your business. Your brother needs—" "No, Mom." I cut her off, still chuckling. "What my brother needs is to grow up and take responsibility for once in his life. I've moved out. Found my own place. The apartment is yours and Ryan's now." "You what?" she screeched. "You can't do this. We need that rent money." "Well," I said, smiling to myself, "I'm sure Ryan will step up and start paying rent now that he's had time to get back on his feet. Can't wait to see how that works out for you." Silence. I could hear the gears turning in her head as reality hit her. Their easy source of money was gone. All they had left was their unemployed son, who had never paid a single bill in his life. "Patricia, sweetie," Mom's voice suddenly turned soft and sweet, the way it always did when she wanted something. "Let's not be hasty. We can work something out. What if we go back to the original rent amount?" That was fair, wasn't it? I leaned back into my new couch, the one I picked myself for my apartment, where no one could ever kick me out of my own bedroom.
"No, Mom."
"That's not going to happen." "But Patricia, we're family. You can't just—" "Family?" I interrupted. "Is that what you call it when you secretly give my money to Ryan? When you kick me out of my room while I'm paying all the bills? When you've treated me like an ATM my whole life while treating Ryan like a king? That's not fair. We've always—" "Goodbye, Mom." I ended the call and blocked their numbers. That was 7 months ago. I never asked for updates, but my grandparents tell me anyway. They know I need to hear it. I need to know I made the right choice. According to my grandparents, Ryan, Jennifer, and Eric are still living in the apartment. They haven't paid a single month's rent. Mom and Dad are covering all the utilities and even giving them extra money because the baby needs things. Ryan still hasn't found a job. Apparently, there aren't many executive positions for failed businessmen with a history of bankruptcy. Meanwhile, my life is peaceful. I got another promotion at work, bought myself a car, and started taking evening classes for my MBA. My apartment is always clean. My food stays in the fridge until I decide to eat it. And every night, I sleep in my own bed. The other day, I ran into Jennifer's cousin at the grocery store. She casually mentioned that Jennifer and Ryan are expecting another baby. I just smiled and wished her well, knowing that somewhere across town my parents are probably already figuring out how to pay for another nursery. But that's not my problem anymore. For the first time in my life, I'm putting myself first.
And it feels absolutely right.